Listen carefully. Your brain has been hijacked, not by accident, not by weakness, by design. Every notification, every scroll, every hit of novelty is training your mind to crave stimulation and reject stillness. You are not distracted because you lack discipline. You are distracted because your dopamine system has been weaponized against you. This audiobook is your counterattack. Over the next few hours, you will learn how your attention was stolen, how your focus was fractured, and how to reclaim control of your mind. You will reset your dopamine baseline, rebuild deep focus, and rediscover satisfaction in silence, effort, and slow progress. If you are ready to stop living in reaction mode and start thinking clearly again, subscribe to this channel now. Do it before the noise pulls you back in. Lock it in. This is not about quitting technology. This is about mastering your nervous system. Take your attention back. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Your attention is under attack. The world is not noisy by accident. Read that again. The world is not noisy by accident. You are not surrounded by chaos because society lost control. You are surrounded by chaos because chaos is profitable. Your attention is the most valuable resource in the modern economy, and every major platform is competing to extract it from you minute by minute, click by click. This is not a conspiracy. This is a business model, and you are the product. That's the first truth you must accept. You wake up and your phone is already waiting. Notifications, messages, headlines, alerts. Before your feet touch the floor, your nervous system is activated. Your brain is already chasing stimulation. You didn't choose that. It was chosen for you. That's the key. You've been told a lie for years. The lie is that distraction is your fault. That if you were more disciplined, more motivated, more focused, you wouldn't struggle to concentrate. That your scattered attention is a personal failure. It's not. Say it clearly. This is not a motivation problem. This is an environmental problem. You are trying to build focus in an environment designed to destroy it. And no one told you that. Modern platforms are not neutral tools. They are engineered systems. Every scroll, every refresh, every autoplay, every vibration is calibrated to exploit a specific mechanism in your brain. Dopamine. Not pleasure, pursuit. Dopamine is the chemical of anticipation. It fires when something might be rewarding, not when it is rewarding. That's why the scroll never ends. That's why the next video always loads. That's why your thumb keeps moving even when you feel empty. You are not weak. You are being trained. Short-form videos are not entertainment. They are neurological drills. They condition your brain to crave novelty every few seconds, to abandon depth, to reject stillness, to associate boredom with danger. Social media feeds are not social. They are slot machines, variable rewards, unpredictable hits. Sometimes interesting, sometimes not. That unpredictability is what hooks you. Notifications are not helpful reminders. They are interruptions by design. Each one pulls you out of the present moment and teaches your brain a dangerous lesson. Whatever you are doing is less important than this. Over time, your brain adapts. And adaptation is where the damage happens. Your attention span shrinks. Your tolerance for effort drops. Your ability to sit with one task collapses. You start 3 things and finish none. You skim instead of reading. You scroll instead of thinking. You react instead of choosing. And then you blame yourself. That's the tragedy. You have a choice. You can keep believing you are broken, or you can see the system clearly. Because once you see the system, you stop internalizing the damage. That's the key. Look at your phone usage honestly, not defensively, not emotionally, strategically. You open an app to check one thing, you exit 20 minutes later having forgotten why you opened it. That is not a lack of willpower. That is behavioral engineering. You sit down to focus. A notification arrives. You don't even think. You reach. That reflex was trained into you. You don't need their permission to admit this. You were never meant to win this fight with willpower alone. Willpower is finite. Systems are infinite. And you are up against systems with billions of dollars behind them. This is why discipline feels harder than it should. You are swimming upstream in a current designed to pull you under. That's the environment. Now understand the deeper cost. This constant stimulation does not just steal your time, it also steals your energy. It rewires your expectations. Your brain starts rejecting anything that doesn't deliver instant feedback. Reading feels slow. Conversations feel dull. Work feels heavy. Silence feels unbearable. Not because those things lost value, it's because your brain lost patience. That's the real attack. Your attention is so fragmented that you can no longer experience depth. And depth is where meaning lives. Depth is where mastery lives. Depth is where joy lives. A fragmented mind cannot feel fulfilled. Say that again. A fragmented mind cannot feel fulfilled. So you chase more stimulation, hoping it will fill the void. But it never does. It only deepens it. You refresh, you scroll, you consume, and still feel restless. That's not an accident. The more distracted you are, the easier you are to control. The easier you are to influence. The easier you are to sell to. Attention is power. Whoever controls it controls you. And right now you are not in control. But you can be. You have a choice. You can continue letting external systems decide where your attention goes, or you can reclaim authority over your mind. But first, you must stop blaming yourself and start understanding the battlefield. This is not about quitting technology. That's unrealistic. That's not the point. It's not about becoming extreme. It's about becoming aware. Awareness is the first act of rebellion. Once you see how feeds are engineered, you stop trusting the impulse to scroll. Once you understand dopamine loops, you stop mistaking urgency for importance. Once you recognize how notifications hijack your nervous system, you stop treating them as neutral. You don't need their permission to pause. You don't need their permission to turn things off. You don't need their permission to protect your attention. Because attention is your life force. Whatever holds, it shapes you. This chapter is not here to make you angry. It's here to make it clear. Clear enough to stop saying, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What am I being exposed to?" That question changes everything. Because when the environment changes, behavior changes. When exposure changes, cravings change. When inputs change, outputs change. That's the key. You cannot fix focus at the level of motivation. You fix it at the exposure level. Less noise, less novelty, less interruption, not yet as an action, as understanding. You are standing at the edge of a realization most people never reach. Your struggle is not a personal failure. It is a predictable response to a hostile environment. And now that you see the attack, you can prepare your defense. Because once you reclaim your attention, you reclaim your direction. Once you reclaim your direction, you reclaim your future. You have a choice. Stay distracted and reactive, or become deliberate and disciplined. You now understand the battlefield. Next, you must understand the weapon being used against you. You mastered the environment. Now let's talk about the chemical driving the chase. Chapter 2. Dopamine is not pleasure, it is pursuit. Most people misunderstand dopamine. That misunderstanding is destroying their focus, their motivation, and their ability to feel joy. You've been told dopamine is the pleasure chemical. That's wrong. Dopamine is not about pleasure. Dopamine is about pursuit. Say it again. Dopamine is not pleasure. Dopamine is a pursuit. That's the key. dopamine fires before the reward, not after it. It spikes in anticipation, not satisfaction. It surges when something might be rewarding, not when it actually is. This is why the chase feels better than the catch. This is why scrolling feels compelling, but never fulfilling. Your brain is not addicted to happiness. It is addicted to seeking, and modern systems exploit this perfectly. Every notification is a promise. Every scroll is a maybe. Every refresh is an anticipation. Your brain lights up not because you're enjoying yourself, but because you might enjoy yourself in the next second. That is the trap. You scroll not because you feel good, but because you are hoping to feel good. You click not because you are satisfied, but because you are unsatisfied. Dopamine keeps you moving forward, never arriving. That's the design. This is why endless feeds never end. This is why autoplay exists. This is why short-form content works so well. Each piece is just stimulating enough to keep dopamine elevated, but never satisfying enough to shut it down. So you continue. You don't need their permission to admit this. Look at your own behavior honestly. How often do you finish scrolling and think, that was enough? Almost never. Because dopamine does not signal completion, it signals continuation. High dopamine states feel energized, alert, and restless. They do not feel calm, they do not feel content, they feel urgent. That's why overstimulation creates anxiety, not happiness. Say it clearly, high dopamine creates low satisfaction. That's the paradox most people never understand. When dopamine is constantly elevated, your baseline shifts. What used to feel interesting now feels boring. What used to feel rewarding now feels dull. What used to be enough now feels empty. So you need more content, more novelty, more intensity. This is not growth, this is tolerance, just like any addiction. Your brain adapts to the stimulus. The same input produces fewer responses. So the system escalates. Faster clips, louder sounds, brighter visuals, stronger emotions, and your nervous system never gets a break. You are always reaching, always anticipating, always chasing, and never satisfied. That's the cost. This is why people feel unmotivated even though they are constantly stimulated. This is why rest feels uncomfortable. This is why silence feels unbearable. Your dopamine system is stuck in overdrive, and an overdriven system cannot feel joy. Joy is quiet. Joy is slow. Joy is stable. Dopamine is loud. Dopamine is fast. Dopamine is restless. You cannot live in both states at the same time. You have a choice. You can live in pursuit, or you can live in the present, but not both. Now understand this clearly, dopamine itself is not the enemy. You need dopamine to act, to move, to pursue goals. The problem is uncontrolled dopamine. Unregulated pursuit leads to burnout. Unregulated novelty leads to fragmentation. Unregulated stimulation leads to emptiness. That's the key. The modern environment floods you with artificial dopamine spikes, not earned through effort, not grounded in progress, not followed by satisfaction, just spikes. And spikes without resolution exhaust the system. Think about it. Reading a book releases moderate amounts of dopamine through sustained effort, followed by satisfaction. Completing meaningful work creates dopamine through progress, followed by calm. Scrolling creates dopamine through anticipation, with no resolution, no closure, no completion. So your brain never shuts off the pursuit mode. That's why you feel tired but wired, exhausted but restless, stimulated but unfulfilled. It's not a mystery. Your brain is chasing ghosts. You don't need their permission to slow this down, but you must first stop confusing stimulation with fulfillment. Stimulation feels active. Fulfillment feels complete. Stimulation demands more. Fulfillment says enough. Most people never reach fulfillment because they never allow dopamine to settle. They move from hit to hit to hit, never letting the system return to baseline. Baseline matters. When your dopamine baseline is too high, ordinary life feels unbearable. Work feels heavy. Conversations feel slow. Progress feels invisible. So you escape again. That's the loop, and loops create prisons. This is why motivation feels broken for so many people. They are not unmotivated, they are overstimulated. Their brains have learned to expect constant novelty, so effort-based rewards no longer register. Say it again, this is not a motivation problem. This is a dopamine regulation problem. You cannot think your way out of this. You cannot willpower your way out of this. You must change what you expose your nervous system to. You have a choice. Feed the pursuit endlessly, or retrain your baseline. But retraining feels uncomfortable at first, because when dopamine drops, you feel boredom, restlessness, irritation, a sense of emptiness. That discomfort is not failure. That discomfort is withdrawal, and withdrawal is the doorway to recovery. Most people never stay long enough to reach the other side. They escape the moment boredom appears. They grab the phone, they open the app, they spike dopamine again, and the system never resets. That's the tragedy. If you sit with boredom without escaping, something powerful happens. Dopamine settles. Your nervous system recalibrates. Ordinary things start to feel rewarding again, but only if you allow it. You don't need their permission to endure boredom. Boredom is not the enemy. It is the signal that your system is recalibrating. That's the key. This chapter is not asking you to eliminate pleasure. It's asking you to stop chasing artificial stimulation at the cost of real satisfaction. Chasing dopamine is easy. Earning satisfaction requires discipline. It's not about pleasure, it's about regulation. Say it clearly. High dopamine creates low satisfaction. Stable dopamine creates lasting fulfillment. You must choose which life you want. A life of endless pursuit and constant restlessness, or a life of depth, focus, and quiet joy. You don't need their permission to choose differently. You are not here to be entertained endlessly. You are here to build something meaningful. And meaning requires attention. Attention requires regulation. Regulation requires discipline. You now understand the chemical driving the chase. Next, you must understand the consequences of that chase on your mind. Because a brain trained for constant pursuit loses something critical: the ability to focus. You mastered dopamine. Now let's talk about what it's done to your attention span. Chapter 3: Why you can't focus anymore. You think you lost your focus, you didn't. Your focus was trained out of you. That's the truth most people never confront. You weren't born distracted. You weren't designed to be scattered. Your brain was built for depth, for sustained attention, for long periods of effort followed by rest. That was the default. What changed was the training. Your brain learns from what you repeat, and for years now you have repeated one pattern above all others: interruption. Interruptions taught your brain a new rule: quit early. Every time you switch tasks, your brain learns that discomfort means stop. Every time you abandon effort for stimulation, your brain learns that depth is optional. Every time you reach for your phone at the first hint of boredom, your brain learns that focus is unnecessary. That's the key. Your brain does not fail at focus. It obeys what you train it to do. Say it clearly. You don't have a focus problem, you have a quitting habit. And that habit was installed quietly, gradually, without your consent. Look at how you consume information now. Short clips, quick takes, headlines without depth, opinions without context. Your brain adapted to speed. It adapted to novelty. It adapted to constant switching. And adaptation always comes with a cost. The cost is endurance. Focus is endurance for the mind. And endurance disappears when you never practice it. You sit down to work. After a few minutes, resistance appears. The task feels heavy. Your mind looks for an exit. Not because the task is impossible, but because your brain has been trained to expect stimulation, not effort. So it whispers, check something, just for a second. You deserve a break, and every time you listen, the habit deepens. You have a choice. Obey the whisper, or retrain the system. But first, you must stop blaming yourself for something that was conditioned. This is not a character flaw, this is not laziness, this is conditioning. Your brain now associates effort with discomfort and novelty with relief. That's the pattern, and patterns can be broken, but only if you stop fighting symptoms and start addressing training. Focus is not restored by motivation. Motivation is unreliable. Focus is restored by exposure. Expose your brain to depth again. Expose your brain to boredom again. Expose your brain to sustained effort again. That's how focus returns, not instantly. Gradually. You must understand this part clearly. When you remove stimulation, focus does not immediately appear. At first, you feel restless, irritated, distracted. Your mind rebels. That is not failure. That is your brain recalibrating. Most people quit here. They mistake discomfort for incapacity. They assume something is wrong and return to stimulation. And the cycle continues. You don't need their permission to stay with the discomfort. Discomfort is the doorway. Focus is not built by comfort. Focus is built by resistance. Say it again. Focus is built by resistance. The reason deep work feels harder than it used to is that your resistance tolerance is low. Not because you are incapable, because you are undertrained. No one expects muscles to grow without strain, yet you expect focus to return without effort. That's not how the nervous system works. Let's be precise. Every time you interrupt yourself, you pay a cognitive tax. Your brain must reorient. It must reload the context. It must regain momentum, and each switch weakens your capacity to stay. This is why multitasking feels productive but produces nothing. You are busy, but shallow. Active, but ineffective. That's the trap. Depth requires continuity. Continuity requires protection. And right now, your attention is unprotected. Notifications interrupt, tabs tempt, feeds call, and you answer. You don't need their permission to stop answering. You must stop treating interruptions as neutral. They are not neutral. They are training signals. Every interruption teaches your brain, abandon the task. If you want focus, you must reverse that signal. Finish what you start. Not perfectly, not endlessly, but deliberately. You don't rebuild focus by working longer. You rebuild focus by working without the option to escape. That's the discipline. Here is the rule you must adopt. When resistance appears, you stay. Not forever, not heroically, but long enough to teach your brain a new lesson. Resistance does not mean stop. Resistance means settling. That's the key. Your brain needs to relearn that effort is safe, that boredom is not a danger, that silence is not a threat, and it will only relearn that through experience. No lecture will fix this. No insight will solve this. Only behavior will. You have a choice. Continue reinforcing distraction, or begin reinforcing focus. Now listen carefully. This is not about becoming hyper-productive. This is about restoring your capacity to choose where your attention goes. Right now, your attention is reactive. It jumps to the loudest stimulus, the newest input, the easiest escape. That is not freedom. Freedom is choosing one thing and staying with it. Freedom is finishing. Freedom is depth. Freedom is the ability to remain present without fleeing. You don't need their permission to reclaim that. Here is the behavioral instruction for this chapter. Simple, non-negotiable. Choose one task per day that requires focus. 1. No multitasking. No background stimulation. No switching. Set a fixed time. 20 minutes is enough. And when resistance appears, you do not escape. You do not check. You do not refresh. You sit. You breathe. You continue. Not because it feels good, but because it trains the system. This is not about productivity. It's about rehabilitation. Your attention span is injured, and injured systems need rehab, not punishment. You wouldn't run on a broken leg, but you also wouldn't avoid movement forever. You would retrain gradually. This is the same. Each day you stay with one task a little longer, your tolerance increases, your focus deepens, your mind quiets. And something surprising happens. The noise fades because the noise was never external. It was internal. Your brain was screaming for stimulation because it was addicted to escape. When you stop escaping, the screaming stops. That's the breakthrough. Most people never reach it because they quit too early. You won't, because you now understand the mechanism. You lost focus because you were trained to quit early. You regain focus by training yourself to stay. That's the key. You have a choice. Live in fragments or rebuild depth. You now understand why focus disappeared. Next, you must understand the hidden damage caused by constant stimulation beyond focus alone. Because distraction does not just steal your attention, it steals your peace. You retrained your attention. Now let's talk about the silent cost of overstimulation. Chapter 4: The Silent Cost of Constant Stimulation. Overstimulation does not announce itself. It does not arrive as a crisis. It does not feel dramatic. It does not look dangerous. That's why it's so destructive. The damage happens quietly, gradually, invisibly. You don't wake up one day and say, "I'm overstimulated." You wake up tired, restless, irritable, flat, and you assume that's normal. It's not. Constant stimulation has a cost. And most people are paying for it every day without realizing it. That's the key. A stimulated mind is not a fulfilled mind. Say it again. A stimulated mind is not a fulfilled mind. You've been taught that stimulation equals engagement, that being busy means being productive, that constant input means you're learning, growing, staying relevant. That belief is wrong. Stimulation excites the nervous system. Fulfillment settles it. And when your nervous system never settles, peace disappears. Let's be precise. When your brain is constantly exposed to input, sound, visuals, messages, alerts, content, and opinions, it stays in a state of low-level alert. Not panic, not fear, just tension. Always on, always scanning, always reacting. This state feels normal because you've lived in it for so long, but normal does not mean healthy. A nervous system that never powers down cannot restore itself, so symptoms appear. Anxiety that has no clear cause, restlessness when nothing is happening, irritable over small things, a sense of emptiness even when life looks fine. These are not personality traits. These are nervous system signals. Your mind is overloaded, and overload has consequences. One of the first things to go is emotional regulation. When your system is overstimulated, your tolerance shrinks. Small frustrations feel big. Minor delays feel unbearable. Silence feels uncomfortable. Why? Because stimulation raises your baseline arousal, everything is louder, sharper, faster. So when stimulation drops, your brain interprets it as a loss. That's why you reach for your phone the moment nothing is happening. Not because you need information, because your nervous system can't tolerate quiet anymore. That's the silent cost. Silence feels threatening. And when silence feels threatening, peace becomes impossible. You don't need their permission to acknowledge this. Look at your own reactions. How often do you fill every gap, waiting, walking, sitting, even resting? Music, podcasts, videos, feeds, no space, no pause. That's not curiosity. That's avoidance. Avoidance of stillness. And stillness is where your nervous system recovers. Without recovery, fatigue accumulates, but not the kind of sleep fixes. This is mental fatigue, the kind that makes everything feel heavier than it should, the kind that makes you emotionally dull, the kind that drains motivation even when you want to care. That's the cost of constant stimulation. Another cost is decision fatigue. Every piece of content asks something from you, even unconsciously. React, judge, agree, disagree, compare. Your brain is making thousands of micro decisions every day. Most of them are unnecessary. Over time, this exhausts your executive function. You feel indecisive. You procrastinate. You avoid choices, and not because you're weak, because your cognitive resources are depleted. A stimulated brain is a tired brain. Say it again. A stimulated brain is a tired brain, and tired brains seek relief. Relief looks like more stimulation. That's the loop. Overstimulation creates fatigue. Fatigue creates craving. Craving leads to more stimulation. And the cycle deepens. This is why people feel burned out when they don't do meaningful work. They are not exhausted from effort. They are exhausted from input. Effort builds capacity. Input drains it. That's the difference. Another silent cost is emotional numbness. When everything is stimulating, nothing stands out. When every moment is filled, no moment feels meaningful. Your brain stops responding strongly to ordinary life. Food tastes flat, conversations feel shallow, achievements feel brief. Pleasure fades quickly. Not because life lost value, because your nervous system is overloaded. This is the cruel paradox. The more stimulation you consume, the less you feel. That's the key. People think they are depressed. Often they are overstimulated. People think they are bored with life. Often they are overwhelmed by it. And the solution is not more excitement. The solution is less input. But less input feels uncomfortable at first, because when stimulation drops, the nervous system has to face what it's been avoiding. Restlessness, emotion, thought. That's why people escape silence. But silence is not the enemy. Silence is medicine. Silence is where the nervous system recalibrates, where baseline dopamine settles, and where emotions are processed, where clarity returns. You don't need their permission to reclaim silence, but you must stop treating stimulation as harmless. It is not harmless, it is cumulative, and the cost compounds quietly. This chapter is not asking you to eliminate stimulation. That's unrealistic. It's asking you to see the trade-off. Every unnecessary input costs you something: energy, focus, peace. You have a choice. You can continue flooding your nervous system and wonder why you feel off. Or you can begin reducing input and watch clarity return. The solution is not extreme. It is intentional. Less noise, more space, less reaction, more presence. This is not about productivity. It's about regulation. You don't need to feel stimulated all the time. You need to feel settled. And settled systems perform better. Here is the discipline for this chapter. Start creating pockets of low stimulation. Not forever, not dramatically, deliberately. No input during walks, no background noise while working, no constant checking during downtime. Let your nervous system experience quiet again. At first, it will resist. That resistance is not a danger. It is detox. Stay with it. Because on the other side of overstimulation is something most people have forgotten. Calm, not boredom, not emptiness. Calm, clarity. And clarity is power. You now understand the silent cost of constant stimulation. Next, you must understand why joy feels distant even when life looks fine. Because the problem is deeper than stimulation alone. It's your baseline. You saw the cost. Now let's talk about the damage underneath it. Chapter 5. Your baseline is broken. You think you lost joy. You didn't. Your baseline was distorted. That's the key most people miss. Your nervous system has a reference point, a baseline, a level of stimulation it considers normal. When life stays close to that baseline, you feel calm, grounded, capable of satisfaction. When life moves far above it, you feel overstimulated. When it drops below it, you feel restless. Right now, your baseline is too high. And a high baseline is a quiet disaster. Your brain has been living in a state of constant stimulation for so long that it no longer recognizes calm as normal. Calm now feels empty. Slow feels boring. Still feels uncomfortable. That's not a personality flaw. That's conditioning. Say it clearly. Your problem is not that life lacks joy. Your problem is that your baseline is broken. That's the key. When your baseline is elevated, ordinary experiences can't compete. Work feels dull, conversations feel flat, progress feels invisible, rest feels unsatisfying. So you look for more stimulation, more novelty, more intensity. Not because you want pleasure, because you want relief, and that's the trap. Relief is not joy. Relief is the temporary escape from discomfort. Joy is the stable experience of enough. You cannot feel enough when your baseline is inflated. That's why everything feels underwhelming. Let's make this concrete. You finish something meaningful, a task, a workout, a goal. The satisfaction lasts minutes, not hours. Then your mind drifts. You reach for stimulation again. Why? Because your nervous system is calibrated for spikes, not steadiness. High baseline means low sensitivity. It takes more input to feel anything, and that escalates endlessly. This is why people say, I have everything I wanted, but I still feel empty. Nothing is wrong with their life. Something is wrong with their baseline. That's the silent damage of chronic overstimulation. You don't need their permission to admit this. Your baseline was not always like this. Think back. Simple things used to feel rewarding. A walk, a conversation, a finished task, a quiet evening. Those didn't change. Your nervous system did. It adapted to constant novelty and lost the ability to register subtle reward. That's the cost. Now listen carefully. You cannot fix this by adding more stimulation. That only raises the baseline further. You fix it by lowering the baseline, and lowering the baseline feels uncomfortable at first, because when stimulation drops, your nervous system protests. You feel bored. You feel restless. You feel like something is missing. That feeling is not emptiness. That feeling is recalibration. Say it again. Discomfort is not failure. Discomfort is recalibration. Most people misinterpret this moment. They feel the discomfort and assume something is wrong, so they escape back to stimulation, and the baseline never resets. That's why change feels impossible. You quit too early. You don't need their permission to stay. Baseline repair requires patience, not motivation, not intensity. Consistency. You slowly reduce stimulation and allow your system to adapt. And as it adapts, something surprising happens. Ordinary things start to feel rewarding again. Your focus deepens. your mood stabilizes, your satisfaction lasts longer because your baseline is settling. That's the goal, not excitement. Stability. Stability creates joy. This chapter is not about extreme detox, it's about understanding the mechanism. You cannot expect a nervous system trained on constant stimulation to feel peace overnight. That's unrealistic, but you can expect it to adapt if you stop flooding it. You have a choice: keep feeding the spike, or allow the baseline to drop. Now let's talk about behavior. Lowering your baseline does not require quitting everything. It requires removing the most unnecessary stimulation first. The stimulation you consume out of habit, not purpose. Endless scrolling, background noise, constant checking, filling every pause. These keep your baseline elevated, and you must start removing them deliberately and not all at once, not dramatically, strategically. Because baseline repair happens through absence. Absence of noise, absence of novelty, absence of constant input, and absence creates space. Space allows your nervous system to breathe. That's the key. Here is the discipline for this chapter. Every day, create at least one low stimulation block. No phone, no content, no input. Not to be productive, not to meditate, just to exist without feeding your nervous system. At first, it will feel uncomfortable. Stay. Because that discomfort is your baseline lowering. Do not escape it. Do not judge it. Let it pass, and it will. This is how you teach your nervous system that calm is safe again. You don't need their permission to do this. You don't need to explain it to anyone. You are repairing something foundational. Now understand this clearly. Lower baseline equals higher sensitivity. Higher sensitivity means less input creates more satisfaction. That's how joy returns. Joy is not intensity. Joy is resonance. And resonance requires quiet. This is why slow living works. Not because it's trendy, because it lowers the baseline. This is why boredom is necessary. Not because it's pleasant, because it resets the system. This is why silence feels powerful after adaptation. But only after. Before adaptation, silence feels threatening. That's normal. You must stop mistaking initial discomfort for permanent emptiness. That's the mistake most people make. They quit right before the shift. You won't. Because now you understand. Your baseline is broken because your nervous system has never been allowed to rest. And the rest is not sleep. Rest is the absence of stimulation. You have a choice. Stay overstimulated and emotionally flat, or endure temporary discomfort and rebuild lasting satisfaction. That's the trade, and it's worth it. You now understand why joy feels distant. Next, you must confront the thing you've been trained to fear the most: boredom. Because boredom is not the enemy. Boredom is the reset point. You saw the baseline. Now let's talk about the doorway. Chapter 6. Stop escaping boredom. You've been trained to fear boredom, not consciously, conditionally. Boredom feels wrong to you now, heavy, uncomfortable, almost dangerous. The moment nothing is happening, your hand reaches for stimulation without permission. That reflex did not come from you. It was installed. And until you break it, your nervous system will never reset. That's the key. Boredom is not the enemy. Boredom is the doorway. Say it again. Boredom is not the enemy. Boredom is the doorway. You've been taught that boredom means something is missing. If you feel bored, you should fix it, fill it, escape it. That belief is wrong. Boredom is not the absence. Boredom is transition. It's the moment when stimulation drops and your nervous system doesn't yet know how to be still. It's the space between overdrive and recovery. And most people never stay long enough to cross it. They flee. The moment boredom appears, they reach, scroll, check, play something, anything, and the system never recalibrates. That's the trap. Boredom feels uncomfortable because your brain has been conditioned to expect constant input. When input disappears, dopamine drops. The nervous system panics, not because you are in danger, but because it lost its familiar stimulant. That discomfort is not emptiness. That discomfort is detox. Say it clearly. Boredom is withdrawal, not failure. And withdrawal always precedes recovery. But recovery only happens if you stay. You have a choice. Escape boredom and stay overstimulated, or endure boredom and rebuild your baseline. You don't need their permission to choose the second. Now let's destroy a dangerous misconception. Boredom does not mean your life is meaningless. Boredom does not mean you are unmotivated. Boredom does not mean something is wrong. Boredom means your nervous system is unused to stillness. That's all. And stillness is not passive. Stillness is where your mind reorganizes, where emotions are processed, where clarity forms, where creativity returns. You've been robbed of this space, not maliciously, systemically. Look at how little space your mind gets now. Every pause is filled, every wait is occupied, every silence is covered. You don't give your nervous system time to settle, and a system that never settles cannot heal. This is why boredom matters. Boredom is the reset signal. It tells your brain there is no stimulation coming. Adapt. And adaptation is powerful. But adaptation only happens through exposure. If you never allow boredom, your system never adapts. That's the key. This chapter is not asking you to enjoy boredom. That comes later. It's asking you to stop running from it. Running reinforces fear. Staying builds tolerance. You don't build strength by avoiding resistance. You build strength by staying with it. This is the same. Now listen carefully. The first few times you stop escaping boredom, your mind will rebel. Thoughts will race. Urges will spike. Restlessness will rise. That is not a sign to stop. That is the process working. Most people misinterpret this moment. They think this isn't helping, and return to stimulation. And the nervous system learns once again that boredom equals danger. You must teach it the opposite. Boredom equals safety. How? By staying calm while bored, by not escaping, by letting the urge pass without obeying it. Urges peak and fall. They always do. But only if you don't feed them. That's the discipline. Here is the truth most people don't want to hear. If you cannot sit in boredom, you will never have focus. If you cannot tolerate boredom, you will never feel peace. If you cannot endure boredom, you will always need stimulation to feel okay. That is not freedom. Freedom is the ability to be okay with nothing happening. Say it again. Freedom is the ability to be okay with nothing happening. That's the goal. Now let's talk behavior. Staying out of boredom does not mean doing nothing all day. It means creating deliberate moments where you allow boredom to exist without interference. Small moments, walking without headphones, waiting without checking, sitting without scrolling. These moments matter because they retrain your nervous system to settle. At first, boredom will feel loud, then it will feel neutral. Then something unexpected happens. Your mind slows, thoughts organize, ideas emerge, creativity returns. Not because you forced it, because you stopped drowning it. That's the shift. Boredom is the threshold your mind must cross to reach depth. Depth lives on the other side of discomfort. Most people never cross it. You will. You don't need their permission to protect this space. You don't need to justify it. This is not laziness. This is rehabilitation. Your nervous system has been overstimulated for years. It needs quiet exposure to heal. This chapter gives you a simple instruction. When boredom appears, do nothing. Not forever, not dramatically, just long enough to let the wave pass. Sit, stand, breathe. No input. Let the urge rise. Let it peak. Let it fall. And it will. Every time you do this, you weaken the habit of escape. Every time you escape boredom, you strengthen addiction. You have a choice. Strengthen escape or strengthen tolerance. Tolerance is power, because tolerance creates capacity. Capacity for focus, capacity for presence, capacity for joy. You don't need stimulation to feel alive. You need space. Space allows your nervous system to recalibrate. This is why boredom precedes clarity. This is why boredom precedes creativity. This is why boredom precedes calm. But only if you stop running. This chapter is the turning point. Up until now, you were reducing stimulation, understanding dopamine, repairing your baseline. Now you are facing the discomfort directly, and that courage changes everything. You have a choice. Keep escaping and stay dependent, or stay present and become free. You mastered boredom. Now it's time to build something stronger in its place, because once boredom stops scaring you, effort stops feeling heavy. And effort is how focus returns. You stopped escaping. Now, let's rebuild strength. Chapter 7. Rebuild focus through friction. Focus does not return through comfort. It returns through friction. That's the truth most people avoid. You've been taught to make everything easier, faster, smoother, more convenient, less effort, less resistance, less discomfort. And that mindset quietly destroyed your ability to focus, because focus is not built by ease. Focus is built by resistance. Say it again. Focus is built by resistance. Friction is not the enemy. Friction is the training ground. When everything is easy, your brain weakens. When everything is frictionless, your attention atrophies. When nothing demands effort, your mind forgets how to stay. That's the key. You don't regain focus by eliminating difficulty. You regain focus by choosing it. Modern life removes friction everywhere. Autoplay removes decision-making. One-click access removes patience. Instant delivery removes anticipation. Short-form content removes endurance. And your brain adapts. It becomes impatient, it becomes fragile. It becomes unwilling to stay with anything that doesn't immediately reward it. That is not intelligence. That is dependency. You have a choice. Design your life around comfort and lose focus. Or design your life around friction and rebuild it. You don't need their permission to choose the second. Let's be precise about what friction is. Friction is any barrier that slows you down enough to require intention. Reading instead of skimming. Writing instead of reacting. Working without background noise. Finishing without switching. Friction forces your brain to engage, and engagement is the doorway to focus. When friction appears, your old habit whispers, "This is hard, this is boring, this is unnecessary." That voice is not wisdom. That voice is withdrawal. Your nervous system is used to stimulation. When it doesn't get it, it complains. That complaint is not a signal to stop. It's a signal that training has begun. That's the key. Effort feels heavy only because your tolerance is low. And tolerance grows through exposure. No one builds physical strength by avoiding weight. No one builds mental strength by avoiding resistance. Yet you've been avoiding friction everywhere. You don't need their permission to reverse this. Now, understand something critical. Friction must be chosen. Forced friction breaks people. Chosen friction builds them. You are not here to suffer meaninglessly. You are here to train deliberately. This chapter is about intentional difficulty, Not pain, not punishment. Training. Training your attention to stay. Training your mind to endure. Training your nervous system to tolerate effort again. This is how focus returns. Not by cutting distractions alone, but by replacing them with effort. Removal without replacement creates emptiness. Replacement creates strength. That's the mistake most people make. They reduce stimulation, feel empty, and run back. You won't. You will replace stimulation with friction. Here's how. Start with single tasking. Multitasking destroyed your focus by disrupting continuity. Your brain never stays long enough to settle. It keeps resetting. Focus requires continuity. So you choose one task, one window, one intention. No tabs, no background content, no interruptions. At first, your mind will resist. It will look for exits. It will create reasons to stop. Ignore them. You don't need to feel ready, you need to stay. That's the discipline. Second, increase time under tension. Focus is like a muscle. Short exposure builds nothing. You must gradually extend the duration, not hours, minutes. Start small. Stay consistent. 15 minutes of uninterrupted effort is more powerful than 3 hours of distracted activity. Consistency beats intensity. Say it again. Consistency beats intensity. Third, remove immediate rewards. This is critical. When you reward effort instantly, you teach your brain to expect a payoff before endurance. That weakens focus. Instead, delay the reward. Finish first. Reward later. This trains your dopamine system to associate effort with satisfaction, not escape. This is how deep focus is built. Fourth, embrace slowness. Speed kills focus. When you rush, your mind stays shallow. When you slow down, it sinks. Reading slower, writing deliberately, thinking before acting. Slowness forces attention. Attention creates depth. Depth creates mastery. You don't need their permission to slow down. Now listen carefully. Friction will feel uncomfortable at first. That discomfort is not a sign you're doing it wrong. That discomfort is proof you're rebuilding something that was lost. Most people quit here. They mistake resistance for inability. They assume focus isn't for them. That's a lie. Focus is a skill. Skills are trained. Training feels uncomfortable. You have a choice. Quit at resistance or grow through it. Every time you stay with friction instead of escaping, you send your brain a new message. Effort is safe. Discomfort is temporary. Depth is possible. And with repetition, that message becomes belief. Belief becomes identity. Identity becomes behavior. That's the transformation. Now here is the core instruction of this chapter. Every day, deliberately choose one friction-based activity. Something that requires effort, something that demands attention, something that cannot be rushed, and do it without escape. No multitasking, no stimulation, no shortcuts. Not to be productive, to be disciplined. This is not about output, it's about capacity. Capacity for focus, capacity for patience, capacity for depth. Over time, something changes. The resistance softens, the mind quiets, the urge to escape weakens. Focus returns. Not because you forced it, because you trained it. That's the key. This chapter is where many people feel the shift, where effort stops feeling oppressive and starts feeling grounding, where stimulation loses its grip, where attention becomes stable again. You don't need their permission to experience this. You earned it. But focus alone is not enough. Focus without calm becomes obsession. Focus without rest becomes burnout. You must now learn how to pair effort with recovery. Because strength without regulation collapses. You rebuilt focus through friction. Now let's talk about restoring balance. Chapter 8. Slow. Living is not weakness. You've been taught to equate speed with strength. That belief is wrong. Speed without control is chaos. Speed without intention is reactivity. Speed without recovery is collapse. Slow living is not a weakness. Slow living is a regulation. Say it again. Slow living is not a weakness. Slow living is a regulation. That's the key. You live in a culture that glorifies urgency, faster responses, faster growth, faster consumption, faster results. If you slow down, you're told you're falling behind. That narrative keeps you exhausted, and exhaustion keeps you in control. You don't need their permission to step out of it. Slow living is not about doing less, it's about doing deliberately. It's not laziness, it's precision. When you slow down, you regain agency. You stop reacting to everything. You choose, you prioritize, you protect your energy. Fast living scatters attention. Slow living concentrates it. That's the difference. Understand this clearly. Your nervous system cannot stay in high output mode indefinitely. It needs cycles. Effort followed by recovery. Focus followed by rest. Friction followed by calm. Without recovery, discipline collapses. This is why people burn out even when they are motivated. They push without regulating. They produce without restoring. They focus without settling. And the system eventually breaks. Slow living is how you prevent that. Not by quitting ambition, by sustaining it. That's the key. A regulated nervous system performs better than a frantic one. It thinks clearly. It decides wisely. It adapts instead of panicking. Speed creates mistakes. Slowness creates accuracy. Look at anything built to last. Mastery takes time. Strength takes recovery. Wisdom takes space. Nothing meaningful is rushed, yet you rush everything. Why? Because speed feels productive. It feels impressive. It feels like progress. But speed is often avoidance. Avoidance of stillness, avoidance of reflection, avoidance of discomfort. Slow living forces you to face yourself. And that's why it scares people. You don't need their permission to slow down. Now listen carefully. Slow living does not mean passive living. It means intentional pacing. You work with focus, then you rest fully. Not half rest while scrolling, not recovering with stimulation. Real rest, quiet. Stillness. Low input. This is where your nervous system resets. This is where your baseline stabilizes. This is where satisfaction deepens. Most people never experience real rest. They stop working but keep stimulating. They call it relaxation, but the nervous system stays active. That's not rest. Rest is the absence of demand. No input, no urgency, no expectation. And without it, slow living is impossible. You have a choice. Live fast and fragmented, or live slowly and integrate. Integrated systems are stronger. Now let's confront another misconception. Slow living does not make you irrelevant. It makes you dangerous, because a calm, focused person is not easily manipulated. They don't react to every signal. They don't chase every trend. They don't panic at every shift. They think, and thinking is power. You don't need their permission to think. This chapter is about reclaiming rhythm. Life has a rhythm, work and rest, action and stillness, input and output. Modern life destroys rhythm. Everything blends. Work bleeds into rest. Rest bleeds into stimulation. There is no clear boundary. Boundaries create safety. And safety creates calm. This is why slow living requires structure, not rigidity. Structure Fixed times for work, fixed times for rest. Clear transitions. When you know when to push and when to stop, your nervous system relaxes. Uncertainty creates tension. Structure releases it. That's the key. Here is the discipline for this chapter. Design your days with intention. Not packed, not rushed, deliberate. When you work, work fully. When you rest, rest fully. No overlap. No stimulation disguised as rest. No guilt during recovery. This is not indulgence. This is a strategy. A regulated system can handle pressure. An overstimulated system collapses under it. Slow living is how you maintain regulation. Now understand this. Slowness feels uncomfortable at first. Because your nervous system is used to speed, slowing down feels exposed, vulnerable, empty. That feeling passes. If you stay, just like boredom, just like friction. Everything you're rebuilding requires staying. You don't need their permission to stay. As you slow down, something changes. You notice details again, you hear yourself think, you feel present. Moments last longer. Satisfaction deepens, urgency fades. This is not a weakness. This is a strength. Strength is control over your pace. Anyone can rush. Few can slow down deliberately. This chapter is not asking you to abandon ambition. It's asking you to protect it. Burnout kills ambition. Regulation sustains it. You have rebuilt focus through friction. Now you must preserve it through rhythm. Fast living will undo your progress. Slow living will lock it in. That's the choice. You now understand that slowness is not the opposite of strength. It is the foundation of it. But there is one more layer to reclaim. Even with focus and regulation, something still pulls at you. Validation, approval, the invisible leash. You slowed down your life. Now let's talk about freeing your mind from external control. Chapter 9, Stop Outsourcing Your Self-Worth. Your attention is not the only thing being stolen. Your self-worth is being outsourced. Quietly, constantly, systematically. That's the truth most people never confront. Every like, every view, every comment, every metric. They trained you to measure yourself by external standards. And the moment your self-worth depends on feedback, your attention is no longer yours. That's the key. You don't just check your phone for information, you check it for validation. And validation is addictive. Not because it feels good, because it feels confirming. It tells you you matter. It tells you you're seen. It tells you you're enough. But only temporarily. And temporary validation creates permanent insecurity. Say it clearly. External validation never stabilizes self-worth. It destabilizes it. Because when worth is outsourced, it fluctuates. High engagement feels like elevation. Low engagement feels like rejection. And your nervous system rides that wave whether you want it to or not. That is not confidence. That is dependency. You don't need their permission to admit this. Look at how platforms are designed. Numbers are always visible. Comparisons are constant. Feedback is instant. This is not accidental. It keeps you checking. It keeps you posting. It keeps you adjusting yourself to fit what gets rewarded. And slowly something dangerous happens. You stop asking, "Is this true?" And start asking, "Will this be approved?" That's the real cost. Your attention shifts outward. Your values shift outward. Your sense of self shifts outward. And a person who looks outward for worth is easy to control. That's the system. This chapter is not about deleting social media. It's about reclaiming authority over your self-assessment. Because as long as your worth is externally determined, your nervous system will never settle. You will always be waiting. waiting for approval, waiting for confirmation, waiting to feel okay. That waiting is exhausting, and exhaustion keeps you distracted. You have a choice. Measure yourself internally, or remain dependent externally. But you cannot do both. Now understand this, validation is not inherently evil. Recognition can be healthy. Feedback can be helpful. The problem is when validation becomes the reference point, when external signals replace your internal compass. That's when you lose autonomy. Your nervous system becomes reactive to metrics instead of grounded in values. That's the key. Every time you check for validation, you reinforce a loop. Action to feedback to emotional reaction. Over time, your brain stops acting for meaning and starts acting for response. You post not because it matters, but because it might be noticed. You speak not because it's true, but because it might be liked. That erodes integrity, and integrity is the foundation of calm. A divided self is an anxious self. Say it again. A divided self is an anxious self. When who you are depends on how you're received, you are never stable. You are always adjusting, always performing, always scanning for reaction. That is not peace. Peace comes from internal alignment, from knowing what matters to you and acting accordingly, regardless of response. You don't need their permission to live this way. Now let's talk behavior. The first discipline of reclaiming self-worth is reducing exposure to metrics. Not forever, not dramatically, strategically. Metrics are stimulants. They spike dopamine, they create anticipation, they fuel comparison. If you constantly expose yourself to them, your nervous system stays in a state of constant reactivity. So you limit exposure, check metrics at fixed times. Not reflexively, not emotionally. You decide when feedback enters your mind. That's authority. Second, shift from outcome-based validation to process-based validation. Instead of asking, "How was this received?" ask, "Did I act according to my values?" That question stabilizes the nervous system because values do not fluctuate. Approval does. Third, build private wins. Do things that no one sees. Effort with no audience. Progress without applause. This is critical. Private wins rebuild internal reference. They teach your nervous system that satisfaction does not require observation. That's the key. A person who can feel proud without being seen is unshakable. This is why solitude matters. This is why boredom mattered. This is why slow living mattered. They remove the audience. And without an audience, you meet yourself. That's where self-worth is rebuilt. Now listen carefully. Letting go of validation feels uncomfortable at first because your nervous system is used to feedback loops. When feedback disappears, it feels like emptiness. That emptiness is not loss. It is recalibration. You are learning to generate worth internally again. And that takes time. Most people never stay long enough. They post, they check, they adjust, and the dependency deepens. You won't. Because you now understand. Self-worth outsourced is self-worth controlled. And control creates anxiety. Internal worth creates calm. That's the trade. This chapter is about reclaiming authorship of your identity. Not what performs, not what impresses, what aligns. Alignment creates stability. Stability creates focus. Focus creates power. This is all connected. Your attention cannot be free if your worth is captive. You don't need their permission to stop performing. You are not here to be approved. You are here to build something meaningful. Meaning does not require applause, it requires integrity. You have a choice. Chase validation and remain reactive. Or cultivate internal worth and become steady. You slowed your life, You regulated your nervous system. You rebuilt focus. Now you are reclaiming identity. There is one final step, because all of this discipline, all of this regulation, all of this effort must point somewhere toward a life you choose, not one that happens to you. You reclaimed your attention. Now it's time to decide what you do with it. Chapter 10. Design a life that rewards focus. Reclaiming your attention is not the finish line, it's the beginning. If you return to the same environment, the same incentives, the same defaults, your attention will be retaken. That's the key. Focus survives only in environments that reward it, and environments do not happen by accident. They are designed. Right now, most people live in environments that reward distraction, fast responses, constant availability, immediate gratification, endless input, and then they wonder why focus never lasts. You don't need their permission to stop living this way. If you want sustained focus, you must design a life that protects it, not with motivation, not with willpower, with structure. Structure beats intention every time. Say it again. Structure beats intention every time. You cannot rely on discipline alone. Discipline fades. Structure remains. This chapter is about turning everything you've learned into a system that works without constant effort. Because freedom is not constant self-control. Freedom is not needing constant self-control. That's the difference. Now listen carefully. Your life already has a design. It just wasn't chosen consciously. Your phone placement, your notification settings, your schedule, your work rhythms, your rest habits. All of these shape your attention every day, and right now, most of them are working against you. You have a choice. Let defaults decide your life, or redesign them deliberately. That's the final step. Start with the environment. Your environment should make focus easier than distraction. If distraction is always within reach, you will use it. Not because you are weak, because you are human. So you increase friction for distraction. Phone out of reach, notifications are off by default, single task spaces, and you reduce friction for focus, clear workspace, defined work blocks, obvious starting points. This is not extreme, this is intelligent design. You don't need their permission to redesign your space. Next, redesign your time. Focus cannot exist in chaos. Random schedules create reactive behavior. Reactive behavior destroys depth. You need rhythm. Define times for effort. Define times for rest. Define times for connection. When your nervous system knows what comes next, it relaxes. Uncertainty creates tension. Predictability creates calm. Calm supports focus. That's the key. Work in blocks. Rest in blocks. Disconnect in blocks. No constant blending. Blending destroys recovery. Third, redesign your goals. Goals that reward speed destroy focus. Goals that reward depth strengthen it. If your goals demand constant output, constant responsiveness, and constant visibility, you will always be distracted. Instead, choose goals that reward completion. Finish something, improve something, build something. Do not react to everything. Completion trains satisfaction. Reaction trains anxiety. You have a choice. Design goals that fragment you, or design goals that consolidate you. Fourth, redesign your inputs. You cannot think clearly if you constantly. Every input shapes your mental state, so you become selective. Not everything deserves your attention. Most things don't. You don't need to know everything. You don't need to see everything. You don't need to respond to everything. Scarcity creates value. Your attention is scarce. Protect it. This is not arrogance. This is responsibility. A distracted mind cannot build a meaningful life. Now listen closely. Designing a life that rewards focus means accepting trade-offs. You will be less available. You will be slower to respond. You will miss things. That's not a loss. That's selection. Every yes requires 1,000 no's. The focus is on choosing the right numbers. Most people never make this choice consciously. They drift. They react. They exhaust themselves. You won't. Because now you understand. Attention is not something you find. It's something you allocate, and allocation is a decision. That's the key. This chapter is not about perfection. It's about alignment. Does your environment reward the person you want to become? If not, change the environment. Does your schedule support depth? If not, redesign it. Does your life reward focus or distraction? If not, choose again. You don't need their permission to do this. Now here is the final discipline of this book. Audit your life. Not emotionally, strategically. Ask 3 questions. What steals my attention most often? What consistently protects my attention? What rewards distraction without me noticing? Answer honestly, then redesign. Remove what steals, strengthen what protects, eliminate what rewards distraction. This is not a one-time fix. It's a lifestyle. A focused life is built daily. And here's the truth most people never accept. Once you reclaim your attention, you cannot go back. You will notice the noise. You will feel the manipulation. You will see how fragmented most lives are, and you will choose differently because focus feels better than stimulation. Calm feels better than chaos. Depth feels better than novelty. That's the final realization. This book was never about quitting technology. It was about mastering yourself. You have rebuilt your baseline. You have faced boredom. You have rebuilt focus. You have slowed your life. You have reclaimed your worth. Now you are designing your future. That is power. And power must be used deliberately. Your attention is your life. Where it goes, you go. You have a choice. Drift or design. You reclaimed your attention. Now decide what it's for. Listen carefully. Your brain was hijacked, but it is not broken. You were overstimulated, but you are not weak. You were distracted, but you are not incapable. You were trained, and anything that was trained can be retrained. You now understand the system. You understand dopamine. You understand why the focus collapsed. You understand boredom. You understand friction. You understand slowness. You understand why validation was draining you. You understand how to design a life that rewards depth. This was never about quitting technology. It was about reclaiming authority over your mind. Your attention is your life force. Whatever controls, it controls you. From this moment forward, you have a choice. You can return to reaction, or you can live by intention. You can keep feeding the noise, or you can protect the signal. You can drift, or you can decide. And here is the truth. Once you reclaim your attention, the next battle begins. Because focus without clear thinking is fragile. If attention is the gate, thought is the path. That is why the most powerful next step after this audiobook is critical thinking mastery. Control your thoughts before they control you. This audiobook teaches you how to identify mental traps, interrupt distorted thinking, and prevent emotional reactions from hijacking your decisions. It is the natural continuation of this work. First, you reclaimed your attention. Next, you master what happens inside it. Attention gives you space. Critical thinking gives you direction. Together, they give you control. So here is your challenge. Do not let this clarity fade. Do not let old habits creep back in. Do not wait for motivation. Design your environment today. Protect your attention today. Choose depth today. And if you are ready to go further, continue with critical thinking mastery. Control your thoughts before they control you, and lock in the mental discipline you just rebuilt. Your mind is yours again. Now, prove it.